I've argued with every immigration lawyer I've ever been on with, except for you, because I think you see it and you're honest and you're open. Let's just take what Rebecca just said, because it's true. Let's put aside for 1 minute the absolutely true comment that you said, that there are refugees who deserve asylum. We proved as a country that during Ukraine. What I want to hear from you is an answer that nobody's given me. France is not a war-torn country. We are giving £500 million of British money for the French to basically leave the problem to us. They don't patrol their beaches. People in their waters end up here. Nobody wants to see the deaths. But there is a feeling, David, alongside a desire to do what's right by people who genuinely flee war-torn countries. There are many people in this country saying, hold on a second, it seems to be us. We seem to be the last port of call. We are all struggling, and yet we are seemingly being, I'm not saying overrun, all those dreadful phrases from Braverman, but we seem to have the mickey taken. And I think that's where people's frustration lies. Do you understand that?
Absolutely. And I think one of the problem that we've got, and this is something that the Conservatives a few years ago were looking at addressing, is that whatever policy we put in place, when we look at the Rwanda one, however it gets through, whether it does or not, it's going to face two issues, the Human Rights Act and the European Court of Human Rights. And until we change those existing laws or disapply them and their institutions in Europe, and obviously the Human Rights Act here, legislation, we know that this legislation, if it ever gets to legislation, is going to come a cropper with those two issues. And that's the problem. We keep pushing through things which we know are going to end up in the courts. So change the things that will put them in the courts first as best we can, and then put the legislation through. Now, a while ago, they were talking about getting rid of the Human Rights Act and replacing it with the Bill of Rights. That kind of quietly vanished. And one of the purposes of that was to stop these types of challenges going through. So we're proceeding anyway with this legislation, knowing very well it's going to come a crop with all these...
Is the ECHR, is it relevant? Does it work for today, Rebecca? Or does it need updating? Because the far right of the Tory party will say, you know, sweepingly get rid of it. The rest of the world, well, people will say, oh, you can't do that because it was written and we've got to behave. I get that, but is it effective? Is it right for today?
It doesn't work for today in the slightest. You know, when I say, and I do believe that we absolutely should leave ECHR, and when I say that, you know, people come in from all directions, go, oh, you don't want human rights. Give it a break. We're a decent country full of decent people who do genuinely want to help. We will create our own human rights that are right for our country. And we will effectively look after the people that are here, because that should be our primary concern. And right now, it is our least concern.
David, you must sort of be despairing. You know, in your job, you're trying to protect the rights of the most vulnerable people. And the system we've got in the UK right now doesn't seem to actually do that effectively. And we still have this absolutely horrid, unsustainable problem of people risking their lives crossing the channel. If we could scrap Rwanda, start again, what would your pitch be to the Prime Minister to say, we can come up with a humane deterrent that protects the most vulnerable?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think one of the things we need to do, like I mentioned, is look at the international law that we've got. So, for instance, if we look at the ECHR and we look at how their interpretation in Europe of human rights has changed and expanded since it was first implemented. Now, you know, from a human rights perspective, I want to see protection for those whose lives are genuinely at risk and they're in need urgent assistance. Yeah. That is something that I think, you know, we absolutely must protect around the world. I think what we're seeing in Europe is an absolute widening of that, where, you know, I mean, I'm a gay man, for instance, and even in England, I get discriminated against over a few things here and there. That doesn't mean, in my view, that I should be able to go to America and claim asylum. But that's a lot of I'm not saying everyone, but there's a lot of issues now in immigration and illegal immigration where people are having similar things, where they'll be able to claim asylum on the basis of things which really aren't where their life is at urgent and immediate risk.
And so I think you know what I love? I love your honesty, and I do love talking to you because you look at all sides. That's the point. What frustrates people, I think I can speak for many, is that we are a decent country and we've proven ourselves to be decent, but a certain cabal of people will jump up and down if you don't want to welcome every single person from every single country who's having a bad day by saying they're coming from a war-torn country, they're being discriminated. No, not all of them are. And actually, the biggest failing for Rwanda and the biggest failing of the Tories, and this needs to be said, is that it doesn't act as a deterrent. Because if I was a legal or an illegal migrant, I'd look at the United Kingdom and I go, I'm going to get there and disappear into their society, Rebecca Jane, because they don't do anything about it. It's an easy give, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely ridiculous. We're not a deterrent. We're actually literally a destination.
Yeah.
People see this whole wonderful new life that we're offering to people. And obviously, it is a lot better than whatever they are coming from, even if it is absolutely broken for us. But this is just a ridiculous load of nonsense that is just used as sound bites for Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party to make it look like they care. They don't care. Labour are going to be even worse. The country's in an absolute state. And what hope do we even have when, Westminster is just filled with idiots?